consult Psalm 124 today. And I won't even need all 30 minutes. I'll read it in its entirety from the NRSV translation. I'm going to ask you to allow me to read it before you shout. Please do your best. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, let Israel now say, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side when our enemies attacked us, then they would have swallowed us up alive. When their anger was kindled against us, then the flood would have swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us. And then over us would have gone the raging waters. Blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. I want to use as a simple subject from which to preach, I'm thankful for my help. You may claim your seats in the presence of the Lord. I've shared with us before that I hold to the belief that one of the worst things that we can do before God is to forget what the Lord has done for us. Especially as people of the African diaspora. We can look back generations and attest that God has always been with us. We have, as a people, survived some of the worst atrocities that the world has ever witnessed. And yet, through it all, God has been with us. There are some who would suggest to us that because of what we have gone through as a people, that it makes little to no sense to believe that there is a sovereign God who rules over all creation, who is God enough to hold the world in the hollow of his hand, and yet personal enough to walk with us. That if there really was a God, and if that God was truly all-powerful, then God would not have allowed us to experience the sufferings that we have experienced, or that God would have intervened before we experienced some of the hell that we have survived. But I've come to suggest this morning that God is not God because God stops the worst of life. God is not God because God prevents us from going through everything. But God is God because no matter what we face, God is always there. And God always has the final say. As a people of memory, we have done ourselves a disservice as a community. We have fallen into the trappings of individualizing a faith that is designed to be communal. So much of what we say and what we do as a people now hinges upon what God does for us as individuals. We come to church to get my blessing, my healing, my breakthrough, and my change. And while God is able to bring about your deliverance, your healing, your change, and your breakthrough, God specializes in giving his biggest blessings, his biggest breakthroughs, and his biggest healings, not to an individual, but to a witness of people. This is the testimony of a group of thankful people that we find in Psalm 124. From Psalm 120 through Psalm 134, you will find that bracket of psalms are identified as psalms of ascent. These were psalms, as we have previously shared, that sojourners from far away would sing as they made their long journey to Mount Zion to worship in the rebuilt temple, because it is the place where the name of God dwells. Do well to remember, brothers and sisters, that the temple is not the place where God dwells, because there is no heavenly nor earthly place that can confine the presence of God. But rather, this place on Mount Zion is the place, the temple is the place where the name of God dwells. And as the sojourners would make their way from their native place of origin toward Mount Zion, they would have lifted a song like this: if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side. Let Israel now say, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side when our enemies attacked us, then they would have swallowed us up alive. When their anger was kindled against us, then the flood would have swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us, and then over us would have gone the raging waters. As this group of believers travels together to Mount Zion, to the place where the name of God dwells, they reflect upon a time when the Lord had been with them. The intimation, brothers and sisters, is this: the Lord has been with us, but if he were not, I cannot imagine where we would be. If the Lord had not been with us, if the Lord had not been on our side, if the Lord had not been traveling with us, we cannot imagine what would have come of us. We cannot even think or surmise what life would have thrown at us, what would have overtaken us. Can you imagine the joy, the sheer exhilaration that would have overtaken the band of believers as they marched upward toward Mount Zion, thinking about all that God had spared them from? And all brothers and sisters, as we come to this time of Thanksgiving, we always think about the things that God has done. We always think about the blessings that we have. We always think about about the things that we hold in our hands that God has given us. But this Thanksgiving, since it has come early, I challenge you to think about all of the things that God has kept you from, all of the things that God has shielded you from, all of the accidents that you did not have, all of the things that could have, should have, would have overtaken you. But because the Lord has been with us, we have been spared from what could have happened. Now we are at a considerable disadvantage because the psalmist does not tell us specifically what the Israelites were saved from. Some suggest that it was an attack from Sennacherib in 731, that God shielded them and kept them from being carried away. Some say when some of the exiles were fleeing from Babylon and made their way back to Jerusalem, that God kept them all along their journey. Some say that they are singing in proxy for their ancestors, remembering when God freed them from the oppressive hand and iron foot of Pharaoh as they fled from Egypt, traveled into the wilderness, and were kept all the way until they reached Canaan land. Scholars are not able to tell us conclusively what exactly the Israelites were singing about. And while it seems as if this is a disadvantage, I suggest to you this morning that this relative exegetical ambiguity is not a disadvantage, but rather it's an advantage. It is hazy because it gives us room to slide in and think about all of the times in our lives when God has stepped in and protected us from some things that could have happened in our lives. And here's the slippery slope that Israel considers. If the Lord had not been on our side when our enemies attacked us, they would have swallowed us up. They would have devoured us. When their anger was kindled against us, the flood would have swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us. Then over us would have gone the raging waters. What the psalmist is trying to help us to understand by use of the imagery of water is that there would have been total annihilation. That if it had not been for the Lord, we would not be here today. And you don't have to be an ancient Israelite sojourning from your house to Mount Zion to join in on that testimony. Is there anybody here at 6133 Redan Road who can slip a hand in the air and testify that I, like the Israelites, can affirm that if the Lord had not been with me, if the Lord had not been keeping me, if the Lord had not been protecting me, I don't know where I would be? Would you be kind enough to help me preach to somebody this morning? I just want you to take 30 seconds and look at somebody beside you and just tell them one thing in your life that God has kept you from. Just one thing. Come on, take 30 seconds. Look at somebody and just share one thing that you can share in church. Now turn to somebody else. Tell somebody else one thing that God kept you from or that God kept from you. I'm waiting on you. Now, if you know God to be a keeper, if you know God to be a protector, if you know God to be a waymaker, you ought to open your mouth and give God glory, because if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side, we don't know where. I love what we learn, what we glean from Psalm 124. It's about to get gooder right here because one scholar suggests, based upon the way the Hebrew language is phrased here in Psalm 124, the assumption is that it's the presence of God that the Israelites are talking about. But scholars suggest that no, it is not the presence of God that has kept Israel here in Psalm 124, but rather it is the name of God. See, some of us fall out with God because we can't feel God's presence. We feel that God is not with us if we cannot feel God's presence. But what the Israelites are saying is that no, it's not so much the presence of God that we felt, but it's the fact that we have a name that has been with us. And who am I talking to today? There have been times in your life where you have not felt God's presence, but because you had a name to call, you've come to discover that there's power in the name. You've come to understand that when you call on that name, that things happen, things change, demons flee, yokes are destroyed, chains are broken, heads are lifted, lives are restored, hearts are mended. Is there anybody here who can testify that one reason I made it is because I've had a name that is above every other name? I got the name of the true and living God. The name here, the Lord, that has been used in Psalm 124 is the divine name, Yahweh. Yahweh. It is so high and so holy that when you see the name Yahweh, it is abbreviated. It is not even spelled out all the way. It is so holy. It is so pristine. It is so far advancing that you're not even supposed to pronounce the name. That when you see it, you're only supposed to read it in your mind. And what is being said here in Psalm 124 is that the reason we have made it is because the name has been with us. And oh, brothers and sisters, can I tell you that that's why you and I have made it to the 11th month in 2023. That's why we've made it all the way to November, not because we've been so good, not because we've done everything right, but because we have a name that makes demons tremble. We have a name that's able to cover and keep you. Is there anybody here thankful that you have a name to call no matter what season you're in your life? They recall a time when they were in a situation where they could not help themselves. This is where I'm trying to go. They found themselves in an unspecified situation where their degrees could not help them, where their employer could not help them, where their network and net worth could not help them. They could not spin their way out, network their way out, politic their way out, negotiate their way out, write their way out, filibuster their way out. But I'm so glad to know that because I have a name, I have a way out. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I'm thankful for my help. That's what they're saying. That when we couldn't help ourselves, we got a helper. When we could not lift ourselves, we have a lifter. When we could not deliver ourselves, we have a deliverer. Is there anybody who can just thank God that you have a name that is able to deliver? I'm thankful. I'm thankful on the 5th of November. I'm thankful for the name that I have. Isn't it funny how folks believe dropping a particular name can rescue them in certain situations? I was on YouTube when I should have been working. And I came across a video of a brother, a Euro brother, who got pulled over by the police. And he was upset. And you can really see privilege on full display, because I know that if in the event I'm pulled over, to keep my hands visible on 10 and 2. And if I'm riding with something in the car, to make that known upon being pulled over. And this guy gets out of the car and he says, "Do you know who I am?" "You're barking up the wrong tree, buddy. Do you know who my dad is?" And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is going south really fast. Because he thinks that name dropping his dad is going to get him out of whatever trouble he was already in, and the additional trouble that he's gotten himself in. And as I was ready to continue criticizing him, at the same time I said, he's on to something in a way. Because if you got the right name, and if you got the right daddy, and you know how to call on him, there are some situations that you've been in and that you've gotten yourself in, that if he had not been on your side, then the waters would have overtaken you. You would have been swallowed up. We would have been destroyed, totally annihilated, totally obliterated. But thanks be to God, we've got a name on our side. And I don't know about you, but I'm thankful to have the right name. And so he closes out. I got to leave you here. He says, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth." I don't know about you this morning, church, but I'm thankful for my help. I'm thankful that even in my own minimal intelligence, I have some help that is far more intelligent. No matter how strong I think I am, no matter how much I think I can bear, I'm thankful that I have some help in the name of He who has all power in His hand. I know 2023 has left many of us wounded, many of us scarred, many of us grieving, many of us limping when we thought we should be strutting. But can I tell you the reason why you're still moving forward, even if it is limping, even if it's crawling, is because we have help in a particular name. That's what the sojourners were singing about. Blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth. They're singing about the fact that God has kept them from being totally devoured, from being totally torn apart. I can testify, I've got some wounds. I've survived some things, but it didn't take me out. I've been through some things, but I've come on the other side of them. I'm grateful to know that I've got some help. I'm not totally unscarred, but I am unharmed. I've got some things that I've been through, but I also got a name that has pulled me through. That's why you ought to come shouting and rejoicing. Even as the tears fall, even as bills may mount, even though frustrations may come, you have a name. I have a name. We have a name that has kept us and sustained us and held us together even when it seemed like we were falling apart. That's what Israel was saying. We are grateful to God. Blessed be the Lord. Praise be to God who has not given us as prey to their teeth. We have escaped like a bird. I love the imagery that the psalmist offers to us, that God has set us free to the degree that we are now so far removed from the trap. We are so far removed from the struggle that not only can we look back, but we can now look down. Have you taken a moment to just think about how far the name of the Lord has brought you just this year? I'm not talking about 20 years ago. I'm not talking about 10 years ago. Can you just take a moment and thank God for how much progress you made from January to November? Is there anybody thankful? You may not have lost 50 pounds, but you lost 5. Anybody grateful? You may not have a whole lot of friends, but you got 3 good ones. Anybody grateful? You've allowed folks to expose themselves for who they really are. Anybody grateful that if the world would have had their say, if your enemies would have had their say, if the statistics would have had their say, you wouldn't be here today. But because we got a name, because we have the true and living God, not only are we free, but the trap is broken, the snare is broken, the hurdle has been snapped in half. We got a God who specializes in delivering us. And I love, I'm done, how the psalm ends. The psalm does not give credit to the Israelites' military intelligence. The psalmist does not give credit to having espionage working on their behalf. Spies don't get the credit for their deliverance. But when they think back on how they made it, they come to one logical conclusion. We've had some help, but our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. And can I tell your family that as we come to celebrate Thanksgiving early, don't mistake why you are where you are. The reason why you're here is because of the great helper. The reason why you've made it, the reason why I've made it is because we have a God who specializes in being a shield all around us. I know this is not a sophisticated message. I know I didn't give you 3 alliterated points. I only got 1 point. The reason why we made it is because the Lord has been on our side. The reason why we can wipe tears is because the Lord has been on our side. The reason why we're still in our right minds is because the Lord has been on our side. God bless you, church. May the Lord bless you real good. I'm out of here today, but I've just come to testify that the reason I've got joy is because I'm thankful for my help. The reason why I can still smile is because I'm thankful for my help. I know that all of my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Y'all gotta excuse me here, but I'm shouting because I got some help. And maybe you haven't been there. Maybe you've always had it together. Maybe you've never needed anybody to lift you and to pull you and to encourage you. Maybe you've always been able to see your way. Can I testify that there have been times in my life where it didn't seem like I would make it? There have been times in my life where I felt like I wouldn't make it through. And I know I got some witnesses here who can testify, Pastor, I'm rowing in your boat. There have been times in my life where the devil thought he had won, but what the devil didn't know was that I had a name to call. It wasn't my mama. It wasn't my daddy. It wasn't my sister. It wasn't my brother. But I got a name that's above every name. It's a symphony in 2 syllables, a root out of dry ground, the stone hewn out of a mountain, the chief cornerstone, a way when times are hard. Is there anybody here who knows the name, the sweetest name I know? It's the name that sounds like music. It's the name that'll make you laugh when there's nothing funny. It'll make you run when nobody's behind you. It'll make you clap when nobody's singing. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, if it had not been for the Lord paying my bills, if it had not been for the Lord wiping my tears, if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, is there anybody here who can open your mouth and give God glory because you know that the Lord is on your side? Let folks leave you. The Lord is on your side. Let folks talk about you. The Lord is on your side. Let folks lie on you. The Lord is on your side. And if God be for you, He's more than the world against you. That's why the writer said, greater is He that is within me than he that's within the world. Y'all gotta excuse me, but I preach my own self happy. I'm so thankful for my help. I'm so thankful for my help. All of 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 my help. All my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He can handle it. He can fight it. He'll deliver you. Is there anybody here knows the name I know? Is there anybody here not ashamed to open your mouth and give God glory? Is He all right? Is He all right? Say yay! 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 Losing sleep because you don't know where to turn. You got some help. Mad at the world because it seems like nobody's on your side. But you got some help. If it hadn't not been, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, grief would have taken me out of here. If it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, my broken heart would have made me bleed to death. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, look at somebody and tell them, I'm not by myself. I'm not by myself. I'm not by myself. Come on, deacons. He's on our side. He's on our side. He's on our side. I wouldn't have made it, but because he's on my side, I would have, but because he's on my side, you may be here today. You may be here today, and you want the Lord to be on your side. If you're here and you want to make the next step in your relationship with the Lord, we invite you to step out on faith today. This is not a plaything. This isn't for show. One of the greatest criticisms of the church is that the church pretends like real life doesn't happen. It's not that real life doesn't happen. It's just that when life starts lifing, we got some help. And if I know that I have a God who walks beside me, who won't let life overtake me and overwhelm me, why should I worry? Why should I fret? If you want that kind of security today, you can be saved. If you're here today, main floor, balcony, worshiping online, you need to make a decision. We stand waiting to minister to you even right now. Whatever your need, you're worshiping online, type your need. Salvation, baptism, new member, prayer. We're waiting to minister to you right now. If you're here in the Son's house, just come on right now. Meet me at the altar. You want to be saved. You're looking for a church home. Just come on today. We would love to be your family. I would love to be your pastor. If you're here, just come on. On my side, I see you. Where would I be? Come on, I see you. Where would I be? He kept my enemies away. He let the sun shine through a cloudy day. What else did he do? When he knew for the Lord on my side, I'm thankful for my health today. I'm thankful for my health. He kept my enemies away. Are you here today? Am I waiting on you? He rocked me. When he knew. For the Lord at somebody and ask them, where would I be